Part 1. The Misunderstanding. The message traveled across the stars for 3 months before it reached Earth. It was a simple request, translated through 100 different languages and systems. The Galactic Assembly needed help. They needed peacekeepers. They needed someone to stop a war that had been dragging on for decades. On the edge of assembly space, the Vrex Dominion had been taking territory piece by piece. Every few years, they would claim another colony world. The Assembly would protest. The Vrex would ignore them. Diplomats would meet, talk for months, and nothing would change. 4 worlds were now under Vrex control, and everyone knew more would follow. The Assembly had tried everything they knew. They sent their best negotiators. They offered trade deals. They threatened sanctions. Nothing worked. The Vrex simply did not care what the Assembly thought. So the Assembly did something they had never done before. They asked for outside help. The message reached Earth's communication networks on a Tuesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, every major government had read it. By Friday, the Korean Peninsula United Defense Force had volunteered their peacekeeping battalion. Commander Taeyang Park read the mission brief 3 times. His team would travel to assembly space, assess the situation, and help negotiate a lasting peace. It seemed straightforward enough. He had done similar missions on Earth: civil conflicts, border disputes, humanitarian operations. This would be the same thing, just with aliens instead of humans. Taeyang called his senior officers to the briefing room. Hana Kim arrived first. She was his tactical officer, good at reading situations and planning responses. Minho Choi came next, carrying a tablet full of equipment lists. Minho handled all their weapons and defensive systems. Yuna Lee, their medical officer, arrived last with a cup of coffee in each hand. "We have our mission," Taeyang said, pulling up the translated message on the main screen. "The Galactic Assembly needs peacekeepers. There's a conflict with something called the Vrex Dominion. We deploy in 2 weeks." Hana leaned forward, studying the star charts. "How far?" 3 months travel time. "They are sending coordinates for a station called Meridian." Minho was already making notes. "What kind of opposition are we looking at?" "The brief says the Vrex have a standard military force. Ships, ground troops, the usual. But the Assembly claims this is mostly a diplomatic problem. The Vrex just won't negotiate seriously." Yuna sipped her coffee. "So we are there to encourage them to talk?" "Exactly. Standard peacekeeping. Show presence, demonstrate capability, facilitate negotiations." The team spent the next 2 weeks preparing. Minho loaded their transport ship with standard equipment: rifles, body armor, tactical vehicles, medical supplies, communications gear, and enough ammunition for a prolonged engagement. It was normal for any peacekeeping mission. You hoped you would not need it, but you brought it anyway. Yuna prepared medical facilities, including supplies for treating unknown alien biology. Hana studied everything Earth knew about galactic politics, which was not much. Taeyang drilled the entire battalion on rules of engagement: minimum necessary force, protect civilian populations, maintain professional conduct at all times. The ship departed on schedule. 3 months in transit gave them plenty of time to prepare. The crew studied the limited information they had about aliens. Most species seemed physically smaller than humans. Many breathed different atmospheres. Some communicated through methods humans would need translators to understand. They seemed fragile, Minho observed one day, reviewing biological data. Low-gravity worlds mostly. Thin atmospheres. "All the more reason to be careful," Taeyang replied. "We are there to help, not intimidate." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the coordinates. Station Meridian hung in space ahead of them, a massive structure of interlocking rings and docking spires. Taeyang had seen large space stations before, but this was different. It looked ancient and new at the same time, built by hands that understood engineering humans were still learning. "Station Meridian. This is the Earth vessel Harmony, requesting permission to dock." There was a long pause. Then a translated voice came through, high-pitched and uncertain. "Earth vessel, you are cleared for docking bay 17. Please proceed slowly. We are sending a welcoming committee." The docking procedure took an hour. The station's systems were not designed for human ships. Minho had to manually adjust their vessel's ports 3 times before they achieved a proper seal. When the airlock opened, Taeyang led his senior officers into the station. The gravity felt light, maybe 2/3 of Earth normal. The air was cool and smelled faintly of something like mint. The welcoming committee was waiting in the docking bay. 6 aliens stood in a neat line. They were short, barely reaching Taeyang's chest. Their skin was smooth and gray with large eyes that dominated their faces. They wore elaborate robes in different colors. The one in the center stepped forward. "Welcome to Station Meridian. I am Chancellor Vimros of the Galactic Assembly. You are the Peacekeepers from Earth?" Taeyang bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Yes, Chancellor. I am Commander Taeyang Park. This is my team. We are here to help with your situation." Vimros looked at the humans, his large eyes moving from one to another. Something in his expression seemed worried. "You are all soldiers?" "We are peacekeepers," Taeyang said. "Trained in conflict resolution and negotiation." "I see. And you brought weapons?" Minho answered. "Standard equipment for any peacekeeping operation, Chancellor. We hope we will not need them." One of the other aliens, wearing a blue robe, whispered something to Vimros in a language the translators did not catch. Vimros nodded slowly. "Perhaps we should discuss the details in a more comfortable setting," Vimros said. "Please follow me." They walked through the station corridors. Taeyang noticed other aliens stopping to stare. Some looked curious. Many looked frightened. A small group of aliens pressed themselves against a wall as the humans passed, as if afraid to get too close. Yuna noticed it too. She smiled at a group of aliens and waved. They flinched. One made a high-pitched sound and hurried away. "Are they always this nervous around visitors?" Hana asked quietly. "I do not think they get many visitors built like us," Taeyang replied. The conference room was large, with a long table and many chairs. The chairs were too small for humans, so they stood. Vimros activated a display showing a star map. "This is the situation," Vimros began. "The Vrex Dominion has taken 4 of our colony worlds over the past 30 years. They refuse to negotiate return of the territories. Our diplomatic efforts have failed. We hoped experienced mediators could help break the deadlock." Taeyang studied the map. "What kind of military presence do the Vrex have in the occupied territories?" "Military presence?" Vimros looked confused. "They have standard garrison forces. A few ships, ground installations. Nothing unusual. And your own military capabilities? We have defense fleets, of course. But we do not believe in aggressive military action. We are a peaceful coalition." Hana exchanged a glance with Minho. Something was not adding up here. "Chancellor," Taeyang said carefully, "when you requested peacekeepers, what exactly were you expecting?" Vimros hesitated. "We were expecting diplomatic specialists, trained negotiators who could help us find peaceful solutions. We are trained in conflict resolution," Taeyang said, "but we are also prepared to enforce peacekeeping mandates if necessary." "Enforce?" Vimros's voice went higher. "You mean through military force?" "If absolutely necessary, yes. That is what peacekeepers do." The other aliens in the room began talking rapidly to each other. Vimros held up a hand for silence. "Commander Park, I think there may have been a misunderstanding. When we asked for peacekeepers, we meant mediators. Diplomats, not warriors." Taeyang felt a cold understanding settle in his stomach. "You were not asking for military peacekeepers?" "We were asking for people who make peace through words, not weapons." Minho spoke up. "But surely you understood we would bring military capability. For protection, if nothing else?" One of the other aliens wearing a green robe spoke. "Commander, you must understand. In galactic society, wars are not fought the way you might think. We have conflicts, yes, but they are limited. Controlled. The idea of large-scale military intervention is considered barbaric, something from our ancient past." Yuna looked worried. "How ancient?" "Several thousand years." The humans stood in silence. Taeyang could see his team processing the same realization he was. They had prepared for a standard peacekeeping operation. Show up with enough force to discourage violence, facilitate negotiations, maintain order. But the galaxy did not work that way. Hana asked the important question. "Chancellor, what do you know about Earth?" "Very little, I'm afraid. Your world only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. We know you are new to galactic society. Did you scan our ship when we docked?" "Yes, of course. Standard procedure. And what did the scan show?" Vimros looked uncomfortable. "They showed weapons. Many weapons. Far more than any ship we have ever encountered. The scanning officer thought there must be an error. No peacekeeping vessel would carry such armaments." Taeyang closed his eyes. "There was no error, Chancellor. But why would peacekeepers need so many weapons?" "Because on Earth, peacekeepers sometimes have to fight." We go into active conflict zones. We protect civilians. We stop violence when we must, the aliens. Part 5. A new galactic order station Meridian had never seen so many representatives gathered in one place. The Great Council chamber was filled with diplomats from over 60 species. They were here for one purpose: to negotiate a peace treaty between the Vrex Dominion and the Assembly Coalition, and to determine what role humanity would play in galactic affairs. Commander Taeyang Park walked through the station corridors with his team. Woojin Che, their legal expert, carried a tablet filled with treaty documents and precedents. He had spent weeks studying galactic law, preparing for this moment. "Remember," Taeyang said, "we are here as peacekeepers, not conquerors. We help facilitate the agreement, but we do not dictate terms." "Even though we could," Minho muttered. "Especially because we could." The chamber fell silent when the humans entered. Dozens of alien eyes watched their every move. Some looked fearful. Some looked curious. A few looked resentful. Chancellor Vimro stood at the center podium. "Welcome, Commander Park. Please take your place at the negotiating table." The Vrex delegation sat on one side of the table. Commander Thak led them, looking tired and defeated. The Assembly representatives sat opposite them. The humans took seats at the head of the table, positioned to observe both sides. "We are here to finalize the peace agreement," Vimros began. "The Vrex Dominion has agreed to withdraw from all occupied territories. The details must now be negotiated." For 3 days they negotiated. Woojin proved invaluable, understanding both the legal frameworks and the cultural nuances of galactic diplomacy. When negotiations stalled, Taeyang would quietly suggest compromises. His voice carried weight. Everyone in the room knew what would happen if negotiations failed. The Vrex wanted a slow withdrawal over several years. The Assembly wanted immediate evacuation. Taeyang proposed a middle path: withdrawal within 6 months with Assembly observers monitoring the process. The Vrex demanded compensation for infrastructure they had built on occupied worlds. The Assembly refused, saying the Vrex had no right to build anything on stolen land. Taeyang suggested that civilian infrastructure could remain as a goodwill gesture, while military installations would be removed. Back and forth they went, working through dozens of issues: borders, trade rights, reparations, security guarantees. Taeyang and Woojin guided the process, never forcing but always suggesting, pushing both sides toward reasonable compromise. On the 4th day, they reached an agreement. The Vrex would withdraw completely within 6 months. They would pay limited reparations for damage caused during occupation. A demilitarized zone would separate Vrex and Assembly space. Trade agreements would be established to give both sides economic incentive to maintain peace. Commander Thak signed first, his hand shaking slightly. Then the Assembly representative signed. Finally, Taeyang added his signature as witness and guarantor. "It is done," Vimro said. "Peace between the Vrex Dominion and the Assembly Coalition is officially established." The chamber erupted in applause. Aliens from both sides shook hands, tentacles, and various appendages. The war that had lasted 30 years was over, but the meeting was not finished. Chancellor Vimros raised his hand for silence. "There is one more matter to discuss: the role of humanity in galactic affairs." The chamber grew quiet again. This was the question everyone wanted answered. What would humans do now that they had demonstrated their power? A representative from a species called the Kathrani stood. "Humanity has shown they possess overwhelming military capability. The galaxy must decide, are they protectors or threats?" Another representative, a Philesian, spoke. "They stopped a war. They protected innocent worlds. Their actions speak clearly. But they also terrified the Vrex into submission," the Kathrani countered. "That is not negotiation. That is intimidation." Taeyang listened quietly. He knew this debate was necessary. The galaxy needed to process what had happened. A small alien, one of the Terosians, asked for permission to speak. It was Pyrrha, the young one who had brought gifts to the human base. She looked nervous standing before so many important beings. "I am nobody important," Pyrrha began, "but I lived near the human base. I saw them every day. They were kind to us. They helped repair our equipment when it broke. They shared their food. They played with our children. Yes, they are warriors. Yes, they are dangerous. But they chose to be kind. That means something." Her words created a stir. Other local aliens stood and shared similar stories. The humans had been good neighbors. They had been professional. They had been helpful. Then a Vrex soldier stood. It was one of the infiltrators who had been captured and released. I tried to sabotage their base. They caught me easily. I expected torture or execution. Instead, they treated my injuries, fed me, and sent me home. They defeated our entire fleet without killing a single crew member. These are not mindless killers. These are disciplined professionals. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Vimros called for order. The Galactic Assembly must make a decision. I propose that we formally invite humanity to join as peacekeepers. They would be authorized to intervene in conflicts, maintain peace, and protect innocent lives. But they would be subject to Assembly oversight and rules of engagement. What if humans refuse? Someone asked. Then we hope they remain friendly. But I believe they will accept. Everything they have done suggests they genuinely want to help. The vote took place the next day. Representatives from 60 species cast their decision. The result was overwhelming. Humanity was invited to join the Assembly as official peacekeepers. Taeyang stood before the council to respond. On behalf of Earth, I accept this offer. But with conditions, the chamber stirred. Conditions? Yes, we will protect the innocent. We will stop aggression. We will maintain peace, but we will not be anyone's weapon. We will not follow orders that violate our principles. We will work with the Assembly, but we will not work for the Assembly. We are partners, not servants. Vimros smiled. Those terms are acceptable. Welcome to the galaxy, humanity. The news reached Earth within hours. Nari Seo, who had been appointed as Earth's ambassador to the Assembly, held a press conference. She explained the agreement and what it meant for humanity. We are not conquerors, Nari said. We are not overlords. We are protectors. We will use our strength to help those who cannot help themselves. That is who we are. But not everyone on Earth was happy. Some politicians worried about the commitment. Some military leaders worried about overextension. Some citizens worried about making enemies across the galaxy. Kyung-Ho Im, a strategic analyst, appeared on a news program to discuss the situation. Humans are in a unique position. We are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. That means everyone will watch what we do. If we act with honor, we become trusted guardians. If we abuse our power, we become the galaxy's greatest threat. The choice is ours. 6 months passed. The Vrex completed their withdrawal from occupied territories. Assembly forces moved in peacefully. Trade began flowing between former enemies. The peace was holding. Human peacekeeping teams deployed across the galaxy. Jamin Ko led a team to a border dispute between two minor species. The dispute had simmered for years. Jamin arrived, listened to both sides, and suggested a compromise. Both sides agreed immediately. No one wanted to argue with humans. So Min Yu led a medical team to a disaster zone. A mining colony had suffered a catastrophic failure. The environment was toxic, the gravity was crushing, and rescue seemed impossible. But the humans walked in wearing basic protective gear, carried out survivors, and treated injuries while others worked to stabilize the situation. To Deathworlders, the impossible was just Tuesday. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Conflicts were ending, not because humans fought, but because no one wanted to fight when humans were watching. The threat of intervention was enough. But there were concerns, too. Some species resented human presence. They felt their sovereignty was threatened. They disliked being protected by creatures they feared. Taeyang, now promoted to Director of Galactic Peacekeeping, addressed these concerns at an assembly meeting. We understand some of you are uncomfortable with our presence. We are working to change our image. We want to be seen as helpers, not threats, but we will not apologize for being effective. In Vrex space, changes were happening. The humiliation of defeat had sparked reform. Young Vrex looked at their old government and demanded better. They wanted leaders who would cooperate, not conquer. They wanted peace, not pride. Some Vrex joined exchange programs with humans. They learned about Earth, about human culture, about the principles that guided human behavior. They discovered that strength could be used to protect rather than dominate. One young Vrex named Kelm, the junior officer who had commanded the patrol that first encountered human combat, applied to train with human peacekeepers. His application was accepted. He became the first non-human to complete human peacekeeping training. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, Kelm said in an interview. The physical training alone nearly killed me. But I learned something important. Humans are not strong because they are from a death world. They are strong because they choose to be better than their nature suggests. On Earth, Hein Yun flew a shuttle full of visitors around the planet. They were alien diplomats here to see where humans came from. They visited cities and forests, oceans and mountains. Part 2. Diplomatic Solutions. The human team established their forward base on Taros, a small neutral world between Assembly and Vrex territory. It took them 4 days to set up everything. Ji-Hoon Nam coordinated the supply shipments while Soyeon Han supervised construction of the defensive perimeter. The local alien population watched from a distance. They had never seen anything like the humans. These creatures worked in temperatures that would kill most species. They lifted equipment that required machinery. They moved with efficiency that seemed almost mechanical, yet they laughed and joked while they worked. One morning, a young Tarosian approached the base. She was small, even by alien standards, with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. She carried a basket of local fruits. Yuna Lee was on perimeter duty. She saw the alien and walked over, moving slowly and keeping her hands visible. "Hello there." The Tarosian trembled but held her ground. "I bring gift." "Welcome gift. That is very kind of you." Yuna knelt down to be less intimidating. She was still taller than the alien. "What is your name?" "I am called Pyrrha. You are the humans?" "Yes, I am Yuna. Thank you for the gift." Pyrrha set the basket down carefully. "The fruits are safe for your biology. We checked with the medical database. Are you really from a death world?" Yuna smiled. "I suppose we are. But that does not mean we are dangerous. We are here to help. You do not look like helpers. You look like predators. We are both. Humans can be many things." Pyrrha considered this, then nodded. "I will tell the others you are kind." She hurried away before Yuna could respond. Inside the main command center, Doyun Kang was learning about galactic culture. He spent hours each day reading through historical databases, studying how different species interacted. What he learned worried him. "Commander," Doyun said during the evening briefing, "we have a problem." Taeyang looked up from his reports. "Another one?" "The galaxy does not understand war. Not the way we do. I have been reading their military history. When they say war, they mean something completely different." Hana leaned forward. "Explain. Take the Vrex conflict. In 30 years, total casualties on both sides are around 800 individuals. That is for an entire war. They consider this a massive loss of life." Minho whistled. "We have training exercises with higher casualty rates." "Exactly. And their battles are ritualized. Ships meet at predetermined locations. They exchange fire at long range. If one side takes too much damage, they retreat, and the other side claims victory. Actual ship destruction is rare. Planetary bombardment has not happened in thousands of years." Taeyang rubbed his temples. "So when they asked for peacekeepers, they were expecting someone to referee, essentially, to make sure both sides follow the rules, not to actually fight." "Well," Hana said, "we are here now. We will work with what we have." The meeting with Vrex leadership was scheduled for the next day. Hyunji Kwan, their diplomatic specialist, prepared a presentation on conflict resolution. She had experience negotiating with difficult parties on Earth. How different could aliens be? Very different, as it turned out. The Vrex arrived in a small shuttle. There were 3 of them, tall and thin with red-brown skin that looked almost like polished wood. They wore military uniforms, black with silver decorations. Their faces were angular with sharp features and eyes that seemed too large. The lead Vrex introduced himself as Commander Thak. "I am here to assess the situation. The Assembly has violated galactic law by hiring outside military forces." Taeyang stepped forward. "We are not mercenaries, Commander Thak. We are peacekeepers sent to help resolve the conflict. There is no conflict to resolve. The territories we occupy are rightfully ours. The Assembly simply refuses to accept reality." Yunji activated her presentation. "Perhaps we can discuss the territorial claims in detail. I am sure there is room for negotiation." Thak looked at the humans, his eyes moving from one to another. He seemed to be assessing them. "You are from Earth?" "Yes, a death world, so we have been told. And yet the Assembly expects me to believe you are peaceful negotiators?" Thak's tone was mocking. "Your very biology tells a different story. Forward-facing eyes, predator traits. You smile by baring your teeth. Every instinct you have is designed for hunting and killing." Sunwoo Lim had been standing quietly in the back. He was the team's weapons officer, responsible for maintaining their equipment. He was also getting tired of aliens insulting his species. "Would you like a demonstration?" Sunwoo asked. Taeyang shot him a warning look, but Sunwoo was already moving. He walked to the equipment locker and pulled out a standard-issue sidearm. It was a small weapon by human standards designed for personal defense. "This is a basic human weapon," Sunwoo said. "We carry these when we expect no trouble." He walked outside. The others followed. There was a large boulder about 50 meters away, probably weighing several tons. Sunwoo aimed carefully and fired once. The boulder exploded. Fragments scattered across the ground. A small crater marked where it had been. The Vrek stared. One of them made a high-pitched sound that the translators could not interpret. Sunwoo holstered the weapon. "That is what we bring when we are trying to be peaceful, Commander Thak. Would you like to see what we bring when we are serious?" Thak's wooden-colored skin had gone pale. "That is not possible. No hand weapon has that much power. On Earth, it is standard equipment." Taeyang stepped between them. "Commander Thak, we are not here to threaten you. We are here to help find peace. But you should understand that we have the capability to enforce that peace if necessary." Thak looked at the crater where the boulder had been. "What do you want?" "We want you to withdraw from the occupied territories. We want you to enter good faith negotiations with the Assembly. We want to establish a demilitarized zone and begin trade talks. And if we refuse, then we will pursue alternative solutions." Thak was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I need to consult with my superiors. We will meet again in 3 days." The Vreks left quickly. Taeyang waited until their shuttle was gone before turning to Sunwoo. "That was not subtle. You told me to maintain equipment. I was demonstrating that our equipment is well maintained." Hana tried not to smile. "They certainly seemed impressed." "They seemed terrified," Yuna said. "Did you see how fast they left?" That night, Taeyang could not sleep. He walked the perimeter of the base, thinking. They had come here to help, but everything they did seemed to frighten the locals. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe they needed to try a different approach. He found Ji-won Park on duty at the medical station. Ji-won was organizing supplies, making sure everything was ready in case of casualties. "Cannot sleep either?" Ji-won asked. "Too much on my mind. We are here to make peace, but everyone acts like we are here to conquer. We do look intimidating. Even I can see that. But we are not trying to be intimidating," Ji-won smiled. "Taeyang, we are apex predators from a high-gravity world carrying weapons that can destroy buildings. We are intimidating just by existing. So what do? We do our job. We help these people, even if they are afraid of us. Eventually, they will see that we mean what we say." In orbit above Taros, Hyunwoo Shin was conducting intelligence work. His job was to monitor Vrek's communications and map their military installations. What he found was interesting. The Vrek's military was large but spread thin. They had ships, but those ships were lightly armed by human standards. They had ground forces, but those forces were trained for occupation duty, not combat. The Vreks had been successful because no one ever seriously challenged them. Hyunwoo compiled his findings and sent them to Taeyang. "Commander, the Vreks are not as strong as they pretend to be. Their entire strategy relies on intimidation and the Assembly's unwillingness to fight." Taeyang read the report carefully. "So if we push back, they will fold?" "Most likely. But we need to be careful. If we push too hard, they might do something desperate." 3 days later, the Vreks returned. Commander Thak looked like he had not slept. His 2 companions looked even worse. "We have discussed your proposal with our leadership," Thak said. "They reject it completely. The occupied territories are ours. We will not negotiate their return." Taeyang had expected this. "That is unfortunate. We will need to pursue other options." "What options?" "Military options. Limited intervention to enforce Assembly sovereignty." Thak laughed, but it sounded forced. "You would not dare. Galactic law forbids military aggression." "We are not being aggressive," Hana said. "We are supporting the lawful government in reclaiming stolen territory." "There is a difference. You are 400 soldiers. We have thousands," Minho spoke up. "Yes, but our 400 are from a death world. How many of your thousands are willing to face us?" Thak had no answer to that. The Vreks left again. Taeyang called his senior officers together. "They are not going to negotiate," he said. "We need to demonstrate that we are serious. I want to plan a limited operation, something that shows capability without causing casualties." Over the next week, the team prepared. They studied Vrek's patrol routes. They mapped sensor networks. They identified targets that would demonstrate their abilities without causing harm. The Assembly liaison at their base sent increasingly worried reports back to Station Meridian. The humans were planning an actual military operation, not a limited engagement, not a show of force. An actual attack. Part 3. Deathworld Tactics. The Vrex patrol fleet found the assembly supply convoy exactly where intelligence said it would be. 6 cargo ships lightly armed, carrying food and medical supplies to a colony world. It was a routine operation. The Vrex would intercept them, detain the ships, and return them after proper diplomatic processing. Standard procedure that had been done dozens of times before. Commander Thak was not with the patrol. A junior officer named Kelm commanded the 5 Vrex warships. Kelm had done this many times. It was boring work, but necessary. Attention assembly vessels, Kelm broadcast. This is Vrex Patrol Group 17. You are in contested space. Prepare to be boarded and processed. The assembly ships slowed and prepared to surrender. This was how things worked. You did not fight. You cooperated. Eventually, diplomats would sort everything out. Then 3 new contacts appeared on Vrex sensors. Sir, we have incoming vessels. They are not assembly configuration. Kelm studied his displays. 3 small craft moving fast, very fast. Identify them. Working on it, sir. They are... Wait, the signatures match. They are human craft. Kelm felt his confidence waver. Human? The 3 human combat shuttles slowed as they approached. They were small, maybe a tenth the size of a Vrex warship. They looked almost fragile. Inside the lead shuttle, Seojino checked her instruments. All systems green. Targets locked. Awaiting orders, Taeyang's voice came through the comm. Remember, non-lethal intervention only. Disable their weapons and engines. No casualties. Understood, Commander. Seojin smiled. She had been flying since she was 16. She had flown in storms that would tear metal apart. She had landed on mountains in 0 visibility. 3 alien ships in open space? This would be easy. All units engage. The Vrex never had a chance. The human shuttles moved like nothing Kelm had ever seen. They accelerated at impossible rates. They turned at angles that should have torn them apart. Their weapons were precise and devastating. In 17 seconds it was over. All 5 Vrex warships hung dead in space. Their weapons were destroyed. Their engines were offline. Their shields had done nothing. The aliens inside were alive and unhurt, but completely helpless. Kelm sat in his command chair, staring at his dead console. Around him, his crew was in shock. One was making a high-pitched keening sound. Another had curled into a ball. The human voice came through on emergency frequencies. Vrex vessels, this is Lieutenant Seojin of the Earth Peacekeeping Force. Your ships are disabled but intact. You are in no danger. We are escorting the assembly convoy to its destination. You may contact your command for recovery. Then the human craft were gone, moving with the assembly cargo ships toward their destination. Kelm finally found his voice. Someone contact Commander Thak. Tell him everything. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The humans had fought their first space battle. It had lasted 17 seconds. 0 casualties. 5 enemy ships disabled without being destroyed. Military analysts across 100 worlds studied the engagement footage. They watched the human craft move and could not understand what they were seeing. The acceleration should have killed the pilots. The turn should have torn the ships apart. The weapons should not have been that precise. On Station Meridian, Chancellor Vimros called an emergency assembly session. Representatives from 20 species gathered to watch the footage and discuss what it meant. They moved like predators, one representative said, like something hunting. They could have destroyed those ships, another noted. But they chose not to. They disabled them instead. Is that supposed to comfort us? A third asked. They defeated 5 warships in seconds. What could they do if they wanted to cause harm? Vimros had no answer. On Taros, the human team was confused by the reaction. Bum and Yu, their combat analyst, tried to explain it to them. By galactic standards, what we did was impossible. Our shuttles pulled forces that would kill any other known species. We fought at ranges they consider suicide. We used tactics they have not seen in thousands of years. Taeyang frowned. We used standard intercept procedures. Nothing unusual. For us, yes. For them, we might as well be using magic. Aaron Song, their communications officer, had been monitoring galactic news networks. Commander, you need to see this. She pulled up a broadcast from a major news service. The headline read, Deathworld warriors demonstrate overwhelming force. The report showed footage of the engagement, slowed down and analyzed frame by frame. They are calling us warriors, Aaron said. Not peacekeepers, warriors, Hana sighed. We cannot win. We try to use minimum force and they treat us like monsters. To be fair, Minho said, we did disable 5 warships in under 20 seconds, while trying to be gentle. Yes, but they do not know that. Yuna had been reading medical reports from the Vrex ships. According to this, several of the Vrex crew are receiving treatment for psychological trauma. Not from injuries, from fear. They are afraid of us, Taeyang said. That is the problem. They are so afraid that everything we do seems threatening. Doyen had been working on the translation systems. I think I found something. Our translators have been making errors, small ones but they add up. What kind of errors? When we say we will resolve the situation peacefully, the translators are rendering it as neutralize all hostile elements. When we say we are here to help, it comes across as we are here to enforce compliance. That explains a lot, Hana muttered. The Vrex leadership met in emergency session. Commander Thak stood before a council of generals and politicians. The humans are more dangerous than we understood, Thak said. They cannot be defeated through conventional military means. Then we must try unconventional means, one general suggested. Such as? We have evidence that the Assembly is violating galactic law. Hiring outside military forces is forbidden. We take this evidence to the Greater Council. We paint the humans as illegal mercenaries. We turn galactic opinion against them. And if that fails, the general had no answer. Late that night, a Vrex special operations team approached the human base on Taros. They were the best the Vrex military had. Trained in stealth and infiltration, their mission was to plant evidence that would support the mercenary claims. They would make it look like the humans were being paid massive amounts by the Assembly. The team moved carefully through the darkness. They used every stealth technology the Vrex possessed. They approached the perimeter fence, confident they had not been detected. Then a human voice spoke from the darkness. Stop there, please, the Vrex team froze. Lights came on. They were surrounded by humans, how? They had been so careful. Minjian stepped forward. She was the team's scout, responsible for perimeter security. She had spotted the Vrex team half an hour ago. Tracking them had been easy. To human senses evolved for hunting, the aliens might as well have been carrying torches. You are trespassing on Assembly territory, Minji said calmly. Please surrender your weapons and come with us. The Vrex team leader considered fighting. Then he looked at the humans around them. They were relaxed, almost casual, but their weapons were ready. And after seeing what human weapons could do, fighting seemed like a very bad idea. The Vrex surrendered without resistance. Junho Bei, the security chief, processed the prisoners. He treated them professionally. No rough handling, no threats. He logged their equipment, provided them with food and water, and placed them in comfortable detention cells. The Vrex prisoners were deeply confused. They had been taught that Deathworld species were violent and cruel. But these humans were treating them better than their own military would have. That night, Taeyang decided to talk to the prisoners himself. He brought Yuna along as medical staff in case anyone needed treatment. The Vrex team leader was named Sek. He sat in his cell, looking miserable. I am Commander Taeyang Park, Taeyang said. You were caught attempting to infiltrate our base. Can I ask why? Sek was silent for a moment. Then he sighed. We were ordered to gather evidence against you, to prove you are illegal mercenaries. We are peacekeepers, not mercenaries. That is what you say. But you came with weapons. You attacked our ships. You act like conquerors. We disabled your ships without casualties. If we wanted to conquer, we would have destroyed them. Then what do you want? Taeyang pulled up a chair and sat down, putting himself at eye level with the alien. We want peace. That is all we have ever wanted. We want the Vrex to return stolen territory. We want negotiations to begin. We want all sides to benefit from trade and cooperation. You could just take what you want, Sek said. Your weapons could destroy our worlds. Why negotiate? Because that is not who we are. Yes, we have the capability for violence, but we choose peace when possible. We only fight when we must, and even then we try to minimize harm. Sek looked at Taeyang for a long time. You are very strange Deathworlders. Maybe, or maybe you just do not understand humans yet. Yuna checked the prisoners' health. They were all fine physically, but they showed signs of stress. She prescribed rest and made sure they had comfortable bedding. Why are you being kind to us? One prisoner asked. We are your enemies. You are not our enemies, Yuna said. You are soldiers following orders. We understand that. When this is over, you will go home to your families. Why would we want to hurt you? The prisoner had no answer to that. Part 4. The Deathworld Difference. The news reached every corner of known space within hours. The Vrex Dominion had mobilized its entire military fleet. 200 warships were heading toward Taros. The humans had 6 combat vessels. On Station Meridian, Chancellor Vimros watched the tactical displays with growing dread. This is a disaster. The Vrex are going to slaughter them. His aide spoke quietly. Perhaps. Or perhaps the humans will slaughter the Vrex. 6 ships against 200. These are Deathworlders, Chancellor. I do not think we can predict what will happen. Across the galaxy, billions of beings tuned in to watch. Military observers, civilian news networks, even the Greater Galactic Council monitored the situation. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when an ancient species met a Deathworld species in battle. On Taros, the human team was calm. They had trained for situations like this. Overwhelming odds were a Tuesday for Earth's peacekeepers. Taeyang gathered his senior officers. Sangyun Lee will coordinate fleet operations. I want a defensive formation that protects Taros while giving us room to maneuver. Seojin, you command fighter operations. Minho, make sure every weapon system is at peak performance. Sanghyun studied the tactical situation. He had commanded naval operations in Earth's oceans. Space was just another ocean with different rules. Commander, I recommend we use atmospheric tactics. Explain. The Vrex expect space combat. Fleet formations, long-range exchanges, predictable patterns. We drop into Taros' atmosphere and fight from there. Use the planet as cover. Make them come to us on our terms, Hana nodded. The Vrex ships were not designed for atmospheric combat. Ours were. We trained for it. Do it, Taeyang ordered. The human vessels moved into position around Taros. They did not form the neat formations that galactic warfare expected. Instead, they spread out, using the planet's gravity and atmosphere to their advantage. The Vrex fleet arrived in system 2 days later. Commander Thak watched from his flagship as sensors showed the human positions. They are hiding in the atmosphere? What kind of tactic is that? Unconventional, his tactical officer replied. Should we pursue? We have 200 ships against 6. Of course we pursue, but Thak felt uncertain. Something about the situation worried him. The humans were not running. They were not begging for mercy. They were waiting. All ships advance. Maintain formation. Weapons free when we achieve optimal range. The Virex fleet moved forward in precise formation. It was beautiful to watch. Organized. Disciplined. The kind of military display that had intimidated opponents for decades. Sangyun watched the Vrex fleet approach and shook his head. They are bunched up. Predictable. This is going to be too easy. All units execute Plan Alpha. Remember, disable only. No kills. The human ships emerged from Taros' atmosphere like sharks rising from deep water. They did not move like ships. They moved like living things, fast and aggressive. The battle lasted 8 minutes. The first Vrex ship never saw what hit it. One moment it was advancing with the fleet. The next moment its engines were gone, its weapons destroyed, its shields overloaded. It drifted helpless in space. Then another ship was disabled. And another. And another. The human craft moved between Vrex vessels with impossible precision. They used the planet's gravity to slingshot themselves at incredible speeds. They dove through the Vrex formation, striking and moving before anyone could respond. Seojin O commanded 3 combat shuttles in a coordinated strike. They approached a Vrex battleship from 3 different angles, synchronized their weapons, and fired simultaneously. The battleship's shields collapsed. Its engine core went offline. Its weapons melted into slag. Inside the battleship, alarms screamed. The crew abandoned their stations and ran for escape pods. They had never experienced anything like this. The attack was surgical, precise, and absolutely terrifying. Thak watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. Return fire! Coordinate defensive patterns. But the Vrex could not coordinate anything. The humans were too fast. They appeared, struck, and disappeared before the Vrex could even target them. It was like trying to fight ghosts. Sir, we have lost 20 ships in the first 2 minutes.
40 ships now.
60. The numbers kept climbing. Thak looked at his tactical display and realized the truth. They could not win. They could not even fight effectively. The humans were so far beyond them in capability that this was not a battle. It was a demonstration. All ships cease fire. Cease fire immediately, Thak shouted. Open a channel to the human commander. Taeyang's voice came through, calm and professional. This is Commander Park. Please stop. We surrender. We surrender. Hold position and power down your weapons. We will cease fire when you comply. The Vrex fleet stopped fighting. 200 warships sat dead in space. Over half were completely disabled. The rest were damaged but could still maneuver. Not a single ship had been destroyed. Not a single crew member had been killed. The human vessels moved through the Vrex fleet, weapons still active but not firing. They were herding the alien ships, organizing them into a neat formation. Taeyang broadcast on all frequencies. Commander Thak, this is your final warning. Withdraw all Vrex forces from occupied assembly territory immediately. You have 72 hours to begin the process. If you do not comply, we will come to those territories and remove you ourselves. Do you understand? Thak's voice was small. We understand. Good, you may recover your disabled vessels. Medical teams are standing by if you need assistance. Commander Park out. The human ships pulled back to Taros, resuming their defensive positions. The battle was over. Across the galaxy, silence. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. They had just witnessed something that should not have been possible. 6 ships had defeated 200. Not through luck. Not through trickery. Through sheer overwhelming skill and technology. On Station Meridian, Chancellor Vimros finally found his voice. Get me every military analyst we have. I need to understand what just happened. The analysts gathered and reviewed the battle footage. They watched it once, twice, 10 times. Finally, one spoke. The humans were holding back. What? Look at their weapon impacts. Every shot was precisely calibrated to disable, not destroy. They could have annihilated that fleet in the same 8 minutes. Instead, they surgically removed every ship's capability to fight while leaving crews alive and unharmed. Another analyst nodded. And their maneuvers. They pulled forces that would kill any other known species. Our best pilots could not survive the accelerations they used. They were fighting at maybe 30% of their capability, and it was still overwhelming. So what does that mean? Vimros asked. It means we have no idea what humans can really do when they try. What we saw was them being gentle. On Taros, Heejin Ryu was busy. She was a trauma counselor, trained to help soldiers deal with combat stress. But she was not treating humans. She was treating Vrex crew members who had been evacuated to Taros for medical care. They came at us like demons, one Vrex soldier said. We fired everything we had. Nothing touched them. They were everywhere and nowhere. I thought we were all going to die. But you did not die, Heejin said gently. The humans let you live. Why? We were their enemies. We tried to kill them. Why show mercy? Because humans understand that soldiers follow orders. You are not responsible for your government's decisions. The humans separated the soldier from the state. They defeated your military without harming you personally. The Vrex soldier looked confused. That is not how war works. That is how human peacekeepers work. More Vrex soldiers came through her office. They all told similar stories. Terror, helplessness, the certainty of death, then confusion when death did not come. Some were grateful. Some were angry. All were deeply shaken. One evening, Yuna sat with a group of young Vrex crew members. They had been on a destroyer that was disabled in the first minute of battle. We thought you were monsters, one said. The propaganda said Deathworlders were savage killers. We can be killers when we need to be, Yuna said honestly. But we choose not to be. That is what makes us different. You could have destroyed us. Yes, but you did not. No, we did not. Why? Yuna thought carefully about her answer. Because we have seen what destruction does. Earth has had terrible wars. Millions died. We learned that victory through destruction is no victory at all. So we learned to fight differently. To win without killing. It is harder, but it is better. In Vrex space, the government was in chaos. They had gambled everything on military force. They had lost everything in 8 minutes. Now they faced a choice. Accept defeat or escalate further. Commander Thak argued for acceptance. We cannot beat them, we tried. It was not even close. If we continue to fight, they might stop being gentle. Gentle? A politician shouted. They humiliated our entire fleet. They disabled our entire fleet without killing a single crew member. That was not humiliation. That was mercy. We should be grateful they showed restraint. We will look weak. We are weak. Compared to Deathworlders, we are children playing soldier. We need to accept reality. The debate raged for hours. Finally, the Vrex High Council made their decision. They would comply with human demands. Occupied territories would be returned. Peace negotiations would begin. On Earth, news of the battle spread quickly. People watched the footage and cheered.